Hello everybody, Flyaway Jay here and welcome back to another flight on my Walker Air Transport Nordics tour. This is flight 26 of 50, which is on the second half of the Nordics tour. Today we'll be taking off from Ørsta-Volda Airport, Echo November Oscar Victor, where as usual on this trip we had to deal with some high winds, gusts, bad visibility and a tricky landing upon arrival. Today we're going to be flying the Cessna 172 and heading further north up the coast of Norway, landing in the town of Molde, with an airport code of Echo November Mike Lima. Judging by the weather, it seems fine. Bit of cloud around, certainly not snowing at this point, and I think it should be all good for a nice VFR flight up the coast to Molde. Our flight today will be carrying myself as the crew, with 2 passengers and 100 kg of fuel. Our takeoff weight will be 1,112 kilograms, which is about 48 kilograms less than the max takeoff weight for the Charlie 172. Our flight as planned will be covering a distance of roughly 71 nautical miles as the crow flies, and we'll be cruising at about 100 knots airspeed. The initial cruise altitude will be 4,500 feet above mean sea level. As usual, we'll be flying with live weather, and the conditions today seem to be quite windy. Weather forecast is winds blowing variable degrees at 2 knots, but gusting to 13 knots, which could be what is explaining the level of the windsock at this point. QNH at this airfield is 1029er. Current temperature on the ground is 7 degrees centigrade, or just under 45 degrees Fahrenheit. Today we'll be taking off from runway 06 at Ørsta-Volda and landing on runway 07 at Molde. I will again be using FS Realistic Pro and Navigraph. For FS Realistic Pro, I will be uploading my profiles onto the cloud under the name Flyaway J. So go check it out if you like what my sim looks and sounds like. Both these add-ons, however, are excellent additions to your flight simulation experience, and I definitely suggest you check them out. If there are some add-ons you'd like to see me use on my flights, drop a comment below and I'll be sure to check them out. If you like my videos and you'd like to support the channel, please like and subscribe. Every like and every subscription is greatly appreciated. And just a reminder, if you'd ever like to join me on a flight, send me a message and let's fly. I'd be glad to share the virtual skies with you, as we're here to learn, to have fun and to share the joy of aviation. So feel free to pop me a question in the comments and I'll try my best to answer. But without further ado, let's jump in the cockpit and come fly with me. Alrighty, welcome aboard. As you can see, our Charlie 172 is completely cold and dark, as we normally like to set her up. You can see we've got the ground pins, the pitot cover, and if we look outside, we've got the cowl covers all in place still. So with the WB sim, we have to go into the secret little menu, which is over here. I'll zoom in. On the ADF radio, you can turn all of those items off and prepare the aircraft for startup. But just to get back to the cold and dark for now, I'll just turn everything off so we can follow the checklist properly. Alright, so the first thing we need to do is the engine start checklist. And what we need to do there first is make sure that the parking brake is set, which it definitely is. Next thing we have to check is the fuel selector valve is on both, which it is. Fuel shutoff valve needs to be pushed in, which allows the fuel to flow from the fuel tanks into the fuel system. From a throttle perspective, it has to be 1/4 inch in, so that's roughly there. Mixture needs to be at idle cutoff, so that's pulled all the way back into that position. What we need to do now is prime the engine. So how we do that is we turn the master switch on, the alternator and battery, and turn on the beacon. Beacon light obviously warns people outside the aircraft that this aircraft is about to go live and the engine will start. But more importantly for now, what we need to do is prime the engine. So what we're looking for here is a small increase on the fuel flow when I turn the fuel pump on and push in the mixture. So I'll do that. Fuel pump goes on And what I want to see is a slight increase in the fuel flow, so the needle just barely moves. I'll just hold it there for a few seconds just to allow some fuel to enter the engine. It definitely helps with a cold startup. Bring the mixture back to idle cutoff and fuel pump can go off. Alright, so now what that means is we're ready for the next phase, and that is starting the actual engine. What I'll do now is I'll turn the mag switch all the way to start and simultaneously increasing the mixture to allow fuel to flow to the engine. So let me just do that.
Clear prop.
Hey, and there we have it, a good start. I'll immediately just set the RPM to 1200. There we go, 1200 RPM. Should allow the engine to warm up a little bit. As you can see, the fuel temperature is coming into the green. So that looks good. I'm going to turn on some panel lights so we can see a little bit better what we're doing. Alright, engine start checklist is complete. What we do now is the before taxi checklist. That means nav lights can go on, taxi lights can go on, avionics master switches both can come on, and we'll listen to the cacophony of sound starting up. There we go. Just gonna clear everything here. Alright, so I've already got the flight plan set up from Echo November Oscar Victor, just to save some time. But I will be just double checking everything just to make sure that we are still on track for a good takeoff. So, avionics and GPS, so I'm just going to zoom out here quickly. Just see our departure, what we need to follow. So that's all lined up there. All the way to Echo November Mike Lima, perfect. Okay, from a autopilot perspective, local pressure is 1029er. I just want to set that. Squawk is 3346, that is correct. Altimeter I need to set to local pressure 1029er, that is correct. Pitot heat I will turn on. Flaps, let's set that to 10 degrees. It should be there. Okay. Elevator trim, I need to make sure that that is in the takeoff position, which it is. Flight controls, just going to verify that they are free and correct. Flight controls are free. And mixture needs to be set to full rich at this point. Once we get airborne, we'll set that up a little bit better. Alrighty, so as I said earlier, what we're going to be doing is taking off on runway 06. So what that means for us is a short taxi onto the runway, and then we're going to taxi all the way down the runway, backtrack, and then take off in a northerly direction. So without further ado, let's get this show on the road. I do have a voltage warning. Hopefully that goes away as we increase our engine power. So, parking brake off, and let's roll. And just to look after that nose wheel, we just pull back on the yoke. Nice to see some traffic on the ground. Beautiful little area this. Trying to verify there's no aircraft on the approach. I'm just a little bit concerned with the wind at the moment. It looks like we are potentially going to be taking off with a tailwind if we take off. The winds might have changed a bit. The wind is blowing variable, so just want to check with this. Yeah, definitely. If I go and taxi actually onto runway 06, what that'll mean is we'll be taking off with a tailwind, which is not ideal. That's certainly not what we want to be doing, particularly not in a light small aircraft like the Charlie 172. So what we'll do is we're actually just going to take off on runway 24 today. It helps us in any event because our GPS track is set up to take us in a position that would be behind us if we took off on runway 06. So I'm just going to run up the engine a little bit, line her up properly then for runway 24. Okay, I'm just going to stand on the brakes quickly, set the power. Okay, temperatures and pressures are looking good. Just want that oil pressure to come up a little bit higher. Okay, let's do a quick pre-takeoff run up. So I'm just going to go 1,800 RPM. I'm going to check the mags. Should see a little drop. There we go. Back to normal. Left, right mag. Little drop. Gonna check the mixture. There we go. Mixture's all good. Alright, back to idle. That is no good. Let's start her up quickly again. Gonna start her up with a fuel pump. Well, that's concerning. Not sure why that happened. Shouldn't cut off when you put it back to idle, but maybe it's because the engine is quite cold. Alright, so that was fairly irregular, but that's not going to stop us from going. So at this point we can turn on the strobe lights. Taxi lights can come off, landing lights can come on. Flaps are set for takeoff. Mixture full rich. Fuel selector valve is on both. Fuel quantity is looking good. Avionics all set. Autopilot set. Runway heading for takeoff is set also. Alright. Run up is complete and normal takeoff. So what I'm going to be doing is looking for 60 knots, rotating, and then letting her climb out at about 74, 75 knots. Let's just get comfortable. Oh gosh. Okay, there we go. Nice view. Okay. Alright. Power on. Release the brakes. Manage that center line. And gently pull back. And we're airborne. Just tap the brakes. It's definitely quite windy. Looking for that 70 knots, 75 knots in the climb. Wow, really beautiful. Just going to be following our GPS waypoints. That will definitely help us avoid hitting some of these mountains. Okay, and at this point I'm actually going to turn on the autopilot, set the V-speed, and start the turn. Sure, that's quite bumpy. That is a very bumpy flight. I'm going to set the vertical speed to 800, and that should get us climbing quite nicely at a good speed up to 4,500 foot. Flaps can come up at this point. And landing lights can come off. Airspeed's looking good, track is looking fine, and we're on our way to Molde, or Molde. Apologies to the Norwegians for butchering your town names. Gonna come down on the vertical speed a little bit so we don't drop below 70 knots. Scenery is always amazing up here in Norway. Voltage lights has gone out, which is good. Gonna come back up to full throttle. And managing that EGT. We just want to be just below that little red line. There we go. Airspeed looking good. It's always really important to follow these standard increments of departures. Helps you avoid much of the dangerous terrain. Going to zoom out a little bit so we can kind of see what our track is going to look like. Oh wow, what is that? I never get tired of exploring new places in Microsoft Flight Simulator. Okay, 1.7 nautical miles from our next waypoint. Bravo Victor Kilo. Everything else looks good so far in the aircraft. I was just a little bit concerned about the engine cutting out when I went to idle, but I suspect that that's because the engine was quite cold. Molde Airport, like many of these Norwegian airports, are located or is located in a what I think is a fjord and kind of next to a mountain and along the water, so it's a very beautiful area. Alright, so we've just busted straight through the altitude, which is not what we want to achieve. And I'm going to come back on the throttle, setting it up for about 2300 RPM. Just going to set our descent. Just so we can get back to 4,500. In Norway, the standard temperature or standard altimeter setting is at 7,000 foot, so we're still way below that, so we'll fly with local pressure. Pressure at Molde is 1027. Gonna keep having a look out the window. That's why what VFR is about. Really quite amazing. Our route today is actually going to take us over the airport of Ålesund. I'll peep out the window and see what we can see when we get there. It'll be just on our right as we make the next turn. I'll actually show you. As we hit the waypoint, the airport's going to be just there on the right. Everything looking good so far. Temperatures and pressures are good. Battery looking fine. Outside air temperatures just dropped below freezing. That's why I'm happy I've got the pitot heat on. Below us appears to be the town of Ulsteinvik. If you're from there, drop me a comment and say hi. Quite a short flight today. Making good time though, airspeed's looking good. I can come back a bit on that mixture, just to make sure the aircraft is running quite nice and peak. Perfect. Great to see some greenery. Ooh wee. That is concerning. That was obviously the air coming over that mountain. Suspect that's going to happen again as we come over this one. Yep, there we go. Massive drop. Oh, there we go again. So the airflow over these mountains is basically acting like a wave and dropping us. Yep, and basically after this turn we just pretty much line up straight with Molde Airport. I'm curious if there is an ATIS active at that airport, so let's quickly have a look. So ATIS for this airport is 130.3.325. That's interesting. Why can I not set the... Huh. I'll set that again, 130.325. And that should be Molde Airport ATIS. Which I'm not hearing. Stay airborne. Gonna come add a little bit more power. 2300 RPM. And we're about to turn over the airport. I think it's potentially that over there. Oh, there it is. That's the airport. Just make it out there. And as we turn the corner now, we'll be lining up straight for Molde, which is basically somewhere along there, I think. Okay, I'm going to get set up for the approach so long. So ILS for Molde is 109.75. And there we go. So I think our airport is over here. Should be a very nice visual approach. We are crabbing the aircraft slightly, but what I will do is I'll come back on the power. We're only about, in fact no, I'll come back on the power in about, how long? In about 5 to 10 minutes. And start our descent. Just need to get over this first bit of land in front of us, and that'll set us up for a nice clean approach into Molde. Really beautiful. Pretty nice that I get to see some scenery for a change. Normally I'm trying to bust through clouds and taking some risks, but today it seems like it's all fine. I'm gonna quickly see if I can set up a approach. Let me quickly see. I want to do the maybe an RNAV approach. But with the VEXAP transition. Let me just quickly see. Yep, that should do it. I'm just going to go direct to VEXAP. And just start the approach from here. Why are we going to beat it? So that's our approach. Straight to VEXAP, 7.9 nautical miles. Need to be at VEXAP at 4,600 feet. Trying to see if we can see the airport. And as soon as we hit VEXAP, I'll start the approach mode. It's going to come back a little bit on the power. I've armed the approach. And let's see what happens. We'll see this arm go into active. Just going to zoom in a little bit. Is that the airport over there? Wow, that's the airport lights I can see. Should be quite an interesting landing. Again, with some wind. Don't really have an issue with the wind, but it has been quite tough to land. Alright, we should be starting our descent now. Not sure why there's a turn happening here, but I'm going to let the aircraft do what it needs to. Need to be at 3,800. Gonna come back a little bit more in the power. And even more. Need to descend another 500 or so foot. Coming back on the power even more. Just want to be within the white arc so that we can deploy our flaps. I won't go full flaps. I think I'm just gonna stick to maybe one stage, 10 degrees. There we go. Glide slope has been intercepted. Coming back on the power. Okay, we need to set the local frequency. Landing lights can come on. ILS has been set, altimeter has been set, fuel selector valve is on both, fuel quantity is good if we need to do a go around, mixture comes to full rich. Also to avoid any issues like a stalling engine. Alright. Now it's just a case of managing that airspeed down onto the ground. Autopilot's doing most of the work today. There we go, 80 knots, that should be fine for the approach. I'll turn on the yokes so we can kind of see what the movements are to cater for the wind. Runway heading is 07. Looking good on the approach. Winds seem to be fairly calm. But that always depends on what it looks like when we're on the ground. Quite a high tower over there. Seems like a communications tower. Another one over here. Gotta keep an eye on that airspeed, making sure that we do a good approach. Okay, everything's looking fine. This airport has actually got a tunnel going underneath it, linking it to the other islands. Okay, and at this point I'm going to turn off the autopilot and take control. And I'll fly the glide slip myself. Gonna drop some flaps, slow us down a little bit. And then trim the aircraft. 75 knots is good. Town of Molde on our left. And here, start the bumps. A little bit high on the glide slope. There's 1,000 foot. Drifting a little bit to the left. To the right, I mean. Just gonna come a little bit left. Speed's looking good, glide slope is good. Gonna aim for that clear patch in the runway. Speed's looking fine. Hold it, hold it, hold it. And then correct on the runway. And there we have it. Just gonna find a taxiway here. There's one right here. Very narrow little taxiway. But it's for the general aviation aircraft, so it's going to be a little bit tighter. Gonna find my parking. Front of one of these fences. And that should do it. Just gonna straighten the nose wheel. Set idle power. Gonna keep it at 1000 RPM. Alright. After landing checks, just want to check flaps are retracted all the way. Landing lights can come off now. Strobe lights can come off. Nav lights come off. Parking brake can come on. Heater heat can come off. Stereo lights can come off. Avionics master off. Mixture to idle cutoff. Ignition off. Master and battery all off. And there we have it. Welcome to Molde Airport. Thank you for flying with me again today. I really appreciate it. It was a pleasure having you on board and sharing the virtual skies with you. Just a reminder, if you enjoy what I'm doing, please like and subscribe. It really goes a long way and I really appreciate it. If you have any suggestions for any aircraft I should fly next, please drop it in the comments below. But until next time, happy flying. Flyaway J is out. Peace.